What was the hardest decision you've ever made for the love of someone important in your life? Would you go as far as Hari? Welcome to Happiness of Love, your daily dose of K-dramas. Get ready to fall in love with unforgettable stories. Can you tell us where are you listening from? Yoon Hari's hands trembled as she signed the consent form, the pen hovering momentarily above the dotted line. The pristine consultation room at Seoul's most prestigious fertility clinic felt too sterile, too quiet, as if judging her desperation. The anonymous donor program offers substantial compensation, Ms. Yoon, Dr. Park said, her elegant fingers smoothing the paperwork. Despite being in her 50s, the doctor's skin glowed with the perfection only achieved through wealth and the best skin care. Many women find it helps with their financial situations while helping others start families. Hari clutched her handbag tightly, her knuckles widening. And you're sure it's completely anonymous? The donor won't know who I am? Dr. Park nodded reassuringly. Absolutely. Our premium donors are carefully screened and sign strict confidentiality agreements. Many are successful businessmen who simply wish to help without the complications of traditional parenting. Hari took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. She hadn't planned this, had never imagined herself becoming pregnant through anonymous donation. But her mother's medical bills had piled up, and the surgery she needed wasn't covered by insurance. And the payment as she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Park slid a document across the polished desk. You'll receive the first installment after the procedure, and the remainder upon confirmation of pregnancy. It should cover your mother's surgery with some left over. Hari stared at the figure on the paper, her eyes widening. It was more money than she'd seen in her entire life. Enough to save her mother and give them both a fresh start. That's a lot of money, she whispered. Premium donors command premium compensation, Dr. Park explained with practiced precision. This particular donor's profile shows exceptional intelligence, health markers, and successful business acumen. Hari's hand trembled as she picked up the pen again. What choice did she have? Her mother was suffering, and no amount of part-time jobs would cover the medical expenses in time. I'll do it, she said, her signature quick and decisive, like ripping off a bandage. Later that evening, Hari walked quickly down the sterile hospital corridor, her face drawn with worry. She paused outside her mother's room, taking a moment to compose herself before entering with a forced smile. Yoon Mi-ja brightened immediately upon seeing her daughter, despite the pallor that had become her constant companion these past months. Hariya. I told you not to come so late. I brought your favorite soup, Hari said, kissing her mother's forehead. The room was modest but cheerful, with a few flowers brightening the windowsill, evidence of Hari's attempts to make the clinical space more homey. Did you speak to the doctor about the surgery cost? Mi-ja asked, her eyes clouding with worry. Hari busied herself with arranging items on the bedside table, avoiding direct eye contact. Don't worry about the money, Mom. I found a solution. What solution? Mi-ja's voice sharpened with concern. You're not borrowing from those loan sharks again, are you? It's nothing like that, Hari assured her, forcing a smile. I just took on an extra job. A special project. Mi-ja narrowed her eyes, suspicion clear in her expression. What kind of project pays that much? The doctor says your surgery is scheduled for next month, Hari said, deftly changing the subject. She squeezed her mother's hand. Let's focus on getting you better, okay? As she spoke, Hari silently prayed her mother would never discover what this special project entailed. Some sacrifices were meant to remain secret. Kang Joon-hyuk stood with his back to the door of his expansive office, hands clasped behind him as he gazed out at Seoul's skyline. From the top floor of Kong Biotech, the city looked like a miniature model, something he could control with perfect precision, just like everything else in his life. The knock at his door barely registered before Secretary Kim entered, tablet in hand. Chairman Kong has called again, sir, Kim reported, his tone carefully neutral despite the tension radiating from his employer. She's insisting on an answer about the marriage arrangements. Joon-hyuk didn't turn, his jaw visibly tensing. Tell her I'm in meetings all day. Sir, Kim hesitated, treading carefully. She mentioned that her health is declining, and she would like to see you settled before. I'm aware of my grandmother's condition, Joon-hyuk cut him off, his voice cold enough to lower the temperature in the room. That doesn't mean I'll allow her to dictate my personal life. He finally turned, his expression unreadable but his eyes intense beneath perfectly styled black hair. At 34, Kang Joon-hyuk had already transformed his family's company into a biotechnology powerhouse, his ruthlessness in business becoming the stuff of corporate legend. Has Dr. Park confirmed the procedure? He asked, his tone shifting to something more controlled. Kim nodded. Yes, sir. Everything has been arranged as requested. Complete anonymity was maintained. The specimen was delivered to the clinic yesterday. Good. A hint of satisfaction softened Junhyuk's stern features. My grandmother wants an heir? She'll have one. But I'll do it my way, without the complications of marriage to some chaebol daughter who only wants my company. Secretary Kim shifted uncomfortably. Sir, if I may. This is quite unorthodox. A child without a child with a mother who understands boundaries and signed the appropriate contracts, Junhyuk interrupted sharply. The arrangement is mutually beneficial. She gets financial compensation, I get an heir without the messiness of relationships. It's a business transaction, like any other. He turned back to the window, a flash of vulnerability crossing his face for just a moment. I won't repeat my father's mistakes. Kim recognized the dismissal in his boss's tone and quietly left the office. Alone again, Junhyuk watched the city below, the crowds of people like ants going about their insignificant lives. He had spent his entire life ensuring he would never be at anyone's mercy, not financially, not emotionally. A child was necessary for the Kong legacy, but a wife? That was a complication he could avoid with modern science and the right contractual arrangements. The anonymous mother would be well compensated, and he would have an heir without the risk of betrayal that had destroyed his own parents. It was the perfect solution. Controlled, clean, and completely on his terms. 3 months later, Hari rushed around her small one-room apartment, the morning sunlight filtering through thin curtains. She paused before the mirror, her complexion paler than usual. The nausea had become her constant companion these past weeks, confirmation that the procedure had been successful. She placed a gentle hand on her still flat abdomen, taking a steadying breath. You can do this, she whispered to her reflection. One more job interview. That's all you need. When her phone rang, she answered with her most professional voice, despite the queasiness threatening to overwhelm her. Ms. Yoonhari? This is Secretary Kim from Kong Biotech. About your application for the temporary executive assistant position. The man's voice was efficient, measured. We'd like you to come in today if possible. The position needs to be filled immediately. Hari's heart raced. Kong Biotech, one of Seoul's largest corporations, and one that paid its employees exceptionally well. This could be the solution to her continuing financial problems while she waited for the baby. She'd need to work as long as possible before her condition became obvious. I can be there in an hour, she responded, already mentally selecting her most professional outfit, the one that still fit comfortably. The lobby of Kong Biotech headquarters was intimidating in its sleek modernity, all glass, steel, and understated luxury. Hari clutched her portfolio tighter as she approached the reception desk, fighting the urge to touch her stomach, a habit she'd developed since confirming her pregnancy. Young Min-soo, the HR manager, greeted her with professional courtesy, his assessment of her quick but thorough. Ms. Yoon, thank you for coming on such short notice. We need someone to start immediately. Our CEO's assistant has a family emergency. I understand, Hari replied, matching his professional tone. I'm ready to begin today if needed. As they entered the elevator, Min-soo's expression shifted slightly. I should warn you, Chairman Kong is demanding. The last 3 temps quit within a week. Hari straightened her shoulders. I'm not afraid of hard work. Min-soo's smile was knowing, almost sympathetic. It's not the work that's the problem. It's the man. The elevator ascended smoothly to the executive floor, where Min-soo led her through corridors of hushed efficiency. You'll handle his schedule, correspondence, arrange meetings, and basically anticipate his needs before he knows them himself. The hours are long, but the pay is excellent. Hari's hand instinctively touched her stomach before she caught herself. I can manage. They stopped before imposing double doors, and Min-soo lowered his voice. One last thing, never, ever mention his family. Especially his grandmother. Before Hari could ask why, Min-soo knocked and opened the door. The office beyond was massive, with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing Seoul's skyline. Behind an imposing desk sat a man who could only be Kong Junhyuk, his attention fixed on documents before him. He didn't look up as they entered. Chairman Kong, this is Yoonhari, your new temporary assistant, Min-soo announced. How long did the last one last? 3 days? Junhyuk asked without looking up, his voice deep and cold. Min-soo shifted nervously. 4, sir. Let's see if this one makes it to the end of the day. Finally, he looked up, his gaze meeting Hari's. For a brief moment, something flickered in his eyes, surprise, perhaps even recognition, before his expression hardened again. Hari felt a strange jolt at the intensity of his stare but held her ground. I intend to make it significantly longer than that, Chairman Kong, she said, her tone confident despite the flutter in her stomach that had nothing to do with her pregnancy. Junhyuk raised an eyebrow, clearly not used to being addressed so directly. Is that so? Your confidence is misplaced. My confidence is based on my abilities, sir, Hari countered, matching his cool tone. I believe you'll find me more than capable. Min-soo looked horrified at her boldness, but Jun-hyuk's lips quirked slightly, not quite a smile, but close. Leave us, he said to Min-soo, who promptly disappeared. Alone with her new boss, Hari maintained her composed exterior despite the nervous energy coursing through her. Jun-hyuk studied her with unsettling intensity. You have an unusual resume, Ms. Yoon. Multiple part-time jobs, no long-term positions. Why should I believe you'll stay? Because I need this job, sir, Hari answered honestly. And I'm willing to work harder than anyone else to keep it. Something in her response seemed to intrigue him. He nodded almost imperceptibly before sliding a massive pile of folders toward her. Your first task, reorganize these quarterly reports by priority, not chronology as the last assistant did. Then reschedule my afternoon meetings. I need to visit the research facility by 3 p.m. His tone was challenging, testing. Let's see how long you last. Hari took the folders with determination. I'll have these done within the hour, Chairman Kong. As she turned to leave, a wave of dizziness swept over her. She swayed slightly, gripping the edge of a nearby chair to steady herself. Jun-hyuk noticed. Hari could feel his eyes on her, but he said nothing as she composed herself and walked out with her head held high. In the outer office, Hari set down the folders and took a deep breath. Working directly under Kong Jun-hyuk would be challenging enough under normal circumstances. Doing so while pregnant with what could very well be his child? That complication she hadn't anticipated. But she needed this job, and she was determined to prove herself, to him and to herself. 2 weeks later, Hari had settled into a rhythm at Kong Biotech. The initial dizziness had subsided somewhat, though morning sickness continued to plague her early hours. She'd learned to manage it discreetly, arriving early to ensure any nausea passed before Chairman Kong appeared. She was organizing reports at her desk outside Jun-hyuk's office when Secretary Kim approached, an impressed expression on his face. 2 weeks, he said with a small smile. That's a new record. Hari continued typing, not looking up. Is there a prize? Kim chuckled. Just survival. And his respect, which is rarer than diamonds. Hari glanced at the closed office door, curiosity getting the better of her. Does he respect anyone? He respects competence, Kim replied thoughtfully. And you've shown plenty of that. Just be careful. Careful of what? Hari asked, finally giving him her full attention. Kim lowered his voice, glancing around to ensure they weren't overheard. He has walls for a reason. His father abandoned his mother when she was pregnant. She died in childbirth. He was raised by his grandmother, who's manipulative at best. He doesn't trust easily. Hari absorbed this information, looking toward the door with new understanding. The cold, demanding CEO suddenly had context, a painful history that might explain his detachment. Later that day, she entered his office with coffee, setting it down quietly while he conducted a video call. As she turned to leave, fragments of his conversation caught her attention. The donor-recipient tests came back positive? Are you certain? Jun-hyuk was saying, his tone betraying rare satisfaction. Yes, sir. Successful implantation. The candidate meets all criteria, came the reply from the screen. Excellent. Maintain anonymity protocols, but keep me updated on progress. Hari slipped out, her heart pounding. She hurried to the nearest restroom, splashing cold water on her face as her mind raced. Donor recipient? Successful implantation? It couldn't be about her. Could it? Kong Biotech was a biotechnology company. They must handle dozens of fertility cases. It's a coincidence, she whispered to her reflection. It has to be. He owns a biotech company, they probably handle dozens of fertility cases. She took deep breaths, steadying herself. Just do your job, Hari. That's all you need to focus on right now. The next day, Hari stood quietly at the back of the conference room during a board meeting, tablet in hand, ready to assist if needed. Jun-hyuk commanded the room with effortless authority, his presentation on the company's new direction precise and compelling. The new pharmaceutical division will focus on reproductive treatments, he explained, his deep voice carrying throughout the room. It's a growing market with significant profit margins. It's also highly regulated, with ethical considerations, a skeptical board member countered. Jun-hyuk's response was cool and confident. Which is precisely why we're positioned to excel. Unlike our competitors, we maintain the highest ethical standards while driving innovation. As he continued, Hari suddenly felt lightheaded, the voices around her blurring as her vision darkened at the edges. She tried to remain professional, focusing on breathing deeply, but suddenly the tablet slipped from her hands, clattering loudly to the floor. All eyes turned toward her. Jun-hyuk stopped mid-sentence, his sharp gaze fixing on her. Hari attempted to bend down to retrieve the tablet but staggered slightly, the room spinning around her. Ms. Yoon? Jun-hyuk's voice cut through the haze, but before she could answer, darkness closed in. The last thing she was aware of was the strange sensation of falling, then strong arms catching her before she hit the floor. "Call a doctor. Now." The command came from somewhere above her, Junhyuk's voice carrying an urgency she'd never heard before. Then everything went black. Hari awoke to the sterile white of a hospital room, the soft beeping of machines nearby. As her vision cleared, she was startled to see Junhyuk sitting in a chair near the bed, working on his laptop. He looked up when she stirred, his expression unreadable. "You're pregnant," he stated without preamble, his tone matter-of-fact. Hari's eyes widened in panic. "I can explain." "No need," he interrupted, closing his laptop. "Your personal life is your own business." He stood, his tall figure imposing even in the spacious hospital room. "The doctor says you're suffering from dehydration and low blood pressure. Common in early pregnancy, apparently." "I'm sorry for disrupting your meeting," Hari said quietly, mortification washing over her. Junhyuk studied her for a moment, his eyes calculating. "How far along?" Hari hesitated, a knot forming in her stomach. "About 3 months." Something flickered in Junhyuk's eyes, a quick calculation, perhaps, before his expression returned to its usual impassivity. "And the father?" The question was careful, neutral, but Hari sensed an undercurrent of intensity. "There isn't one," she replied, looking away. "I mean, it's complicated." Junhyuk's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "Rest today," he said, moving toward the door. "I expect you back tomorrow." He paused, turning back to fix her with that penetrating stare. "And Ms. Yoon?" "Yes? No more secrets that affect your work performance. Understood?" Hari nodded, watching him leave with a mixture of relief and apprehension. Her hand moved instinctively to her stomach once he'd gone. Was it possible he suspected? Or was his interest merely professional concern about an employee's reliability? Either way, she was walking a dangerous line, and the ground beneath her felt increasingly unstable. A week after the hospital incident, Hari found herself in the unexpected position of accompanying Junhyuk to an important meeting with Lee Pharmaceuticals. He had surprised her with the request, or rather, command, that morning. "The Lee Pharmaceuticals meeting is in 1 hour," he'd said, emerging from his office with his usual brisk efficiency. "Have the projections ready." Hari had nodded, reaching for the relevant files, when he added unexpectedly, "And you'll accompany me. Take notes." Now they sat in the back of his luxury sedan, the partition raised between them and the driver. The silence was heavy as Junhyuk reviewed documents and Hari gazed out the window, watching Seoul's busy streets blur past. "How are you feeling?" The question caught her off guard, coming from him without warning and without him looking up from his papers. "Better, thank you," she replied, trying to mask her surprise at the personal inquiry. "My driver will take you home after work from now on," he continued, still focused on his documents. "The subway isn't suitable in your condition." Hari turned to him, startled. "That's not necessary, it's efficient," he cut her off. "I can't afford more disruptions to my schedule if you collapse again." His tone was businesslike, but there was something almost protective underneath that Hari couldn't quite reconcile with the cold CEO image he projected. She studied his profile, the sharp jawline and focused eyes. "Why are you being considerate?" she asked, unable to stop herself. "It doesn't match your reputation." For a moment, Junhyuk seemed taken aback by her directness. Then his expression closed off again, the brief vulnerability sealed away. "Don't mistake business efficiency for personal consideration, Ms. Yoon." Hari turned back to the window, but now there was a hint of a smile on her lips. For all his calculated coldness, Kang Junhyuk had just revealed something important. He wasn't nearly as indifferent as he pretended to be. Later that week, Junhyuk took Hari to Kang Biotech's state-of-the-art research facility. As she followed him through the pristine laboratories, she couldn't help but be impressed by the cutting-edge technology and the respect Junhyuk commanded from every researcher they passed. Dr. Lee, the head researcher, approached with a tablet. "Chairman Kang, we have the latest results from Project Genesis." Junhyuk glanced at Hari. "Wait here," he instructed before walking away with Dr. Lee, their voices dropping to hushed tones. Hari waited obediently, taking in the impressive laboratory. After a few minutes, a young researcher approached her with a friendly smile. "You're the new assistant, right?" "I'm Young Minho." "Yoon Hari," she replied politely. "Nice to meet you." Researcher Young leaned in slightly, his voice conspiratorial. "How's it working for the Ice King?" "That's what we call him down here." Hari's loyalty to Junhyuk surprised even herself. "Chairman Kang is demanding but fair. He's been acting strange lately," Young continued, seemingly eager for gossip. "Ever since Project Genesis started showing results. Almost happy? If he's capable of that emotion." Hari's curiosity piqued. "Project Genesis?" Young's eyes widened slightly, as if realizing he'd said too much. "Just routine fertility research." Sorry, I shouldn't gossip. He hurried away as Junhyuk returned, his sharp eyes immediately noticing Hari's thoughtful expression. Problem, Ms. Yoon? He asked, one eyebrow slightly raised. No, sir, Hari replied carefully. Just admiring the facility. Junhyuk studied her for a moment, as if trying to read her thoughts, before nodding. Let's go. We have more to see. As they continued the tour, Hari's mind worked furiously. Project Genesis. Fertility research. The timing of her own procedure at a clinic associated with Kong Biotech. The puzzle pieces were beginning to form a picture she wasn't sure she was ready to see. That evening, Hari sat cross-legged on her bed, laptop balanced precariously as she searched for information about Kong Biotech Project Genesis. The results were limited, a few mentions of a fertility research initiative in corporate reports, but nothing substantial. Her phone rang, interrupting her investigation. Her mother's name flashed on the screen. Mom, how are you feeling? Hari answered, forcing cheerfulness into her voice. Much better since the surgery, Mija replied, her voice stronger than it had been in months. The doctors say I'm recovering well. But what about you? You sound tired. Hari unconsciously placed a hand on her baby bump, now slightly visible beneath her loose shirt. Just busy with work. The new job is demanding but good. You're working too hard again, her mother chided gently. When will you find time for yourself? To meet someone? I want grandchildren while I'm still young enough to enjoy them. The irony wasn't lost on Hari, who winced with guilt. Mom, please. One step at a time. What about this boss of yours? Mija pressed, a teasing note entering her voice. You talk about him a lot. It's not like that. Hari protested, flustered by her mother's suggestion. He's impossible. Cold. Demanding. Her mother hummed knowingly. That's how all the good love stories start. This isn't a drama, Mom, Hari insisted firmly. It's real life. And he's my boss. After hanging up, Hari sighed deeply, placing both hands on her growing stomach. What am I going to do about you, little one? She whispered to her unborn child. How do I tell everyone? Especially if my suspicions are right. The possibility that Kong Junhyuk might be her donor was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore, yet simultaneously impossible to confirm. If he was, and if he ever discovered the truth, what would happen? Would he fire her? Sue her? Claim the child? Hari closed her laptop, suddenly exhausted. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. For now, she needed rest. Hari hurried down the corridor, arms full of documents she'd been organizing for Junhyuk's upcoming board meeting. Lost in thought about the presentation details, she rounded a corner without looking and crashed directly into someone, sending papers flying everywhere. As she knelt to gather the scattered documents, she realized with horror that the person she'd collided with was Junhyuk himself. He'd crouched down as well, helping collect the papers. When their hands reached for the same document, their fingers brushed briefly. Hari pulled back as if burned, the simple contact sending an unexpected jolt through her system. Junhyuk's eyes narrowed slightly at her reaction. He stood, smoothing his impeccable suit. My office. 10 minutes. We need to discuss the Chin contract. He walked away, leaving Hari to collect the remaining papers, her heart racing inexplicably. She took a moment to compose herself before heading to her desk to organize the documents properly. 10 minutes later, she entered his office with the neatly arranged papers. The Chin contract is ready for your signature, sir. As she placed the documents before him, Junhyuk didn't look at them, instead studying her face with unsettling intensity. You've been avoiding me. I've been doing my job, sir, Hari replied professionally, though she knew there was truth to his observation. She'd been keeping their interactions to a minimum, unsure of her growing suspicions, and her growing attraction to him. Let me be direct, Ms. Yoon, Junhyuk said, leaning back in his chair. Your pregnancy, was it through Kong Biotech's fertility program? The question hit Hari like a physical blow. She froze, color draining from her face. How did you answer the question? He interrupted, his tone leaving no room for evasion. Hari took a steadying breath, composing herself. Yes. But it was anonymous. I was told the donor would never know. Junhyuk's expression remained unreadable, but his knuckles whitened as he gripped his pen tighter. And why did you choose this path? My reasons are personal, Hari responded defensively, her protective instincts flaring. Was it for the money? He pressed, his gaze unwavering. Something in his tone, judgment, perhaps, sparked anger in Hari. My mother needed emergency surgery, she said, her voice rising slightly. We had no insurance, no savings. And yes, the program offered compensation. I made a choice I don't regret. She straightened, facing him directly despite the trembling she felt inside. I don't expect you to understand what it's like to be desperate, Chairman Kong. Junhyuk stood abruptly, walking to the window with his back to her. You'd be surprised, he said quietly, almost to himself. After a moment, he turned, his expression now controlled, the brief glimpse of vulnerability gone. Your medical appointments, put them on my calendar. You'll use the company doctor from now on. Sir? Hari asked, confused by this unexpected directive. Kong Biotech takes care of its employees, Ms. Yoon, he explained, his tone businesslike. Especially those participating in company programs. Hari looked suspicious but nodded slowly, uncertain of his motives. Is there anything else, sir? That will be all, he dismissed her with a slight nod. As Hari left the office, her mind was whirling. His questions, his knowledge of her participation in the program, it all pointed to one increasingly likely conclusion. But if Junhyuk was indeed her donor, why hadn't he fired her on the spot? Why offer company medical care instead? Unless he wanted to keep her close, to monitor his investment. The thought left a bitter taste in her mouth. Have you heard? Min Young, another assistant from the marketing department, slid into the seat across from Hari in the corporate dining room. Her eyes sparkled with the excitement of fresh gossip. The Ice King is behaving strangely. The entire executive floor is talking about it. Hari picked at her lunch, trying to appear only casually interested. What do you mean? Min Young leaned in, lowering her voice despite the relatively empty cafeteria. He's less terrifying. Actually said, please, to marketing yesterday. She paused for dramatic effect before delivering the most shocking news, and he's been spotted watching pregnancy videos on his computer. Hari nearly choked on her water, coughing to cover her reaction. Everyone thinks his grandmother finally talked him into an arranged marriage, Min Young continued, oblivious to Hari's distress. Probably some chaebol daughter already pregnant with the heir. The room suddenly felt too warm, too small. Hari set down her fork, her appetite gone. I just remembered something urgent, she said, standing abruptly. Excuse me. She hurried to the nearest restroom, locking herself in a stall as she tried to control her breathing. Pregnancy videos? An heir? The pieces were falling into place with terrifying clarity. When she'd collected herself, Hari approached the sink, splashing cold water on her face. Looking at her reflection, she whispered, it can't be. He can't be. But doubt was rapidly fading. With trembling hands, she pulled out her phone, searching for images of a younger Junhyuk. She found a university graduation photo and studied his features, comparing them to the donor profile details she remembered from the clinic. The resemblance was unmistakable, the match too perfect to be coincidence. Oh my god, she whispered, horror dawning. It's his baby. Junhyuk worked late into the evening, the soft glow of his computer screen the only illumination in his expansive office. The city lights twinkled below, but his focus remained on the document before him, a detailed background check on Yoon Hari. A knock at the door broke his concentration. Secretary Kim entered, carrying a thin folder. Sir, the background check you requested on Ms. Yoon. Junhyuk took the file without comment, opening it immediately. The pages contained everything: her mother's medical history, the mounting hospital bills, Hari's multiple part-time jobs struggling to cover expenses, and finally, her donor application with the fertility program. If I may ask, sir, Kim ventured cautiously, why the sudden interest? That will be all, Kim. Junhyuk dismissed him without looking up. Alone again, he studied Hari's file more carefully. The picture that emerged was clear, a devoted daughter driven to desperate measures by circumstances beyond her control. Her mother's surgery had cost more than Hari could earn in 2 years of regular work. For the first time in recent memory, Junhyuk felt something approaching empathy. He'd never known financial desperation, the Kong fortune had shielded him from such concerns, but he understood sacrifice for family all too well. His phone rang, the screen displaying grandmother. He ignored it, continuing to read Hari's file, struck by an unfamiliar sense of connection to his temporary assistant. She was carrying his child, yet had no idea of the truth. The irony wasn't lost on him. His original plan had been straightforward: find a suitable anonymous carrier for his heir, maintain professional distance, and eventually exercise his legal rights to the child once it was born. The mother would be generously compensated and would disappear from the picture, allowing him to raise his heir without the complications of a relationship. But Hari's unexpected appearance in his company, her competence, her determination, these had thrown an unpredicted variable into his carefully constructed equation. For once in his life, Kang Junhyuk wasn't sure of his next move. The following morning, Hari arrived at work with a resignation letter tucked in her bag. After a sleepless night weighing her options, she decided leaving was the only solution. Once Junhyuk confirmed his suspicions, and she was certain he had them, she would become nothing more than an incubator for the Kong heir. She clutched the letter tightly as she walked through the office, her resolve wavering with each step. Before she could reach her desk, she spotted Junhyuk waiting in the corridor, his expression unreadable as always. "Ms. Yoon. I was looking for you," he said, his deep voice betraying nothing of his thoughts. "Sir, I need to speak with you," Hari began, her fingers tightening around the resignation letter in her pocket. "Not here," he interrupted. "There's a situation at the Gangnam Research Facility. We leave in 10 minutes. Hari hesitated, the letter suddenly heavy in her hand. Junhyuk's eyes dropped to the paper she was clutching. "What's that?" "Nothing, that can't wait, sir," she replied, tucking it away. Whatever the situation was, it would at least give her one more day to consider her options. As Junhyuk's luxury car traveled away from Seoul, Hari grew increasingly confused. The landscape had changed from urban to rural, with no sign of any research facility. "Sir, this isn't the way to Gangnam," she finally said, watching unfamiliar countryside roll past the window. "There is no situation at Gangnam," Junhyuk replied calmly, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. Hari tensed, suddenly wary of being alone with him so far from the city. "Then where are we going?" "Somewhere we can talk privately," he answered, his tone giving away nothing of his intentions. The car eventually turned onto a narrow road leading to a beautiful traditional Korean house nestled among trees, with mountains visible in the distance. The Hanok-style building was both elegant and understated, its traditional architecture blending perfectly with the natural surroundings. Junhyuk led her inside without explanation. The interior was a harmonious blend of traditional Korean elements and modern comfort, simple but clearly expensive. "What is this place?" Hari asked, still cautious. "My retreat," Junhyuk replied, looking different here, less rigid, almost approachable. "Away from the company. Away from expectations." He gestured to a seating area. "Sit, please. We need to talk." Instead of sitting, Hari pulled out her resignation letter and held it out to him. "I think I should give you this first." Junhyuk took the letter, glancing at it before setting it aside without opening it. "I know what it says. And I won't accept it." "It's not a request, Chairman Kong," Hari said firmly, finding strength in her determination to protect herself and her baby. "I'm resigning, effective immediately." Junhyuk stepped closer, his usually cold eyes now intense with purpose. "Because you discovered I'm the donor." The blunt confirmation sent a shock through Hari's system. "You knew? All along?" "Not at first," he admitted, his voice calm but tinged with something like regret. "I suspected when I learned about your pregnancy. I confirmed it last week." Hari backed away, emotions building inside her, anger, betrayal, confusion. "So you've been, what? Monitoring me? Keeping me close to watch your investment?" "That's not," Junhyuk started, a flicker of genuine distress crossing his face. "Is that why you gave me the job?" Hari interrupted, her voice rising with emotion. "To control the situation?" "No," Junhyuk insisted firmly. "You got the job on your own merits. The timing was coincidental." "Coincidental?" Hari scoffed, disbelief evident in her tone. "Like you just happened to be the anonymous donor?" Junhyuk ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, looking uncharacteristically uncomfortable. "I needed an heir without the complications of marriage. You needed money. The program matched us." "An heir?" Hari repeated incredulously. "What is this, the Middle Ages?" "My grandmother is dying," Junhyuk explained, a defensive edge entering his voice. "She wants to see the company's future secured. But I refused to marry for convenience." "So instead you donated sperm and hoped for the best?" Hari's sarcasm barely masked her hurt. "How progressive." Junhyuk's eyes flashed with rare, genuine emotion. "Would you prefer I hadn't? That you hadn't received the money for your mother's surgery?" The question stopped Hari short. She sank onto a chair, suddenly drained. "What do you want from me?" To her surprise, Junhyuk knelt before her, bringing them to eye level, a position of vulnerability no one at the company would believe possible. "A partnership," he said, his voice gentler than she'd ever heard it. "For the child's sake." "What kind of partnership?" Hari asked cautiously. "I provide financial security, you provide maternal care," Junhyuk explained carefully. "We raise the child together." "Co-parenting? With you?" The concept seemed absurd, yet Junhyuk's expression had never been more serious. "I grew up without parents, Hari," he said quietly, using her given name for the first time. The personal address wasn't lost on her. "I won't let my child do the same." The vulnerability in his admission shifted something in Hari's perception of him. This wasn't just the cold CEO, this was a man shaped by his own painful past. "And what about us?" she asked softly. "What exactly would we be to each other?" Junhyuk hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with emotional territory. His expression shifted back to its more familiar businesslike mask. "We would maintain a professional relationship. For appearances, perhaps a public engagement. Nothing more would be required." His clinical tone after the moment of connection was like a dash of cold water. Hari stood, moving to the window to hide her expression. I see. Another business arrangement. She gazed out at the mountains, their peaceful stillness contrasting with her inner turmoil. I need time to think. Of course, Junhyuk agreed. Stay here tonight. We'll return to Seoul tomorrow. As he left the room, Hari remained at the window, her reflection showing a confusion of emotions. Behind her hurt and anger, a part of her recognized that Junhyuk was, in his own flawed way, trying to do the right thing. But was entering another arrangement with Kang Junhyuk, this time with her child's future at stake, a risk she was willing to take? The sunset painted the mountains in shades of gold and purple as Hari walked alone through the garden of Junhyuk's retreat. The traditional landscaping featured a small koi pond, carefully arranged stones, and flowering plants that seemed to glow in the fading light. She paused by the pond, watching colorful fish swim lazily beneath the surface. The peaceful setting contrasted sharply with the tumult of her thoughts. In a single day, her suspicions had been confirmed and her future thrown into uncertainty. Unbeknownst to her, Junhyuk stood at a distance, watching her silhouette against the sunset. His usually controlled expression had softened, revealing a mixture of longing and uncertainty he would never allow anyone at the company to witness. For dinner, a beautiful traditional Korean meal had been prepared. Hari entered the dining room to find Junhyuk already seated at the low table. Please, join me, he invited, his tone less commanding than usual. Hari sat cautiously across from him. They ate in silence for several minutes, the only sounds the gentle clink of chopsticks against porcelain. This place is beautiful, Hari finally said, the silence becoming too heavy to bear. Junhyuk nodded. It belonged to my mother's family. It's the only thing I have of hers. Another silence fell, though less tense than before. Hari studied him surreptitiously, noticing how different he seemed here, his shoulders less rigid, his eyes less guarded. Tell me about your grandmother, she ventured carefully. The one who wants an heir so badly. Junhyuk's expression darkened slightly. She built Kong Biotech from nothing. Brilliant, ruthless, manipulative. She wants the company to stay in family hands, but on her terms. And those terms don't include me, Hari concluded. She wants me to marry within our social circle, Junhyuk confirmed. Someone who understands the business world. Someone who isn't a temp worker with no connections, Hari translated sarcastically. To her surprise, Junhyuk reached across the table, his hand hovering near hers before pulling back. The gesture, though aborted, was unexpectedly revealing. What my grandmother wants doesn't matter, he said with unexpected intensity. What matters is what's best for the child. Hari studied him, seeing something genuine in his expression that she couldn't dismiss. And what about what you want, Junhyuk? It was the first time she'd used his name, and the moment felt suddenly intimate. Junhyuk looked genuinely startled by the question, as if no one had ever asked him that before. I want not to repeat my father's mistakes, he finally said, vulnerability evident in his usually guarded eyes. Hari watched him, seeing beyond his CEO facade for the first time. The man before her wasn't simply the cold, calculating businessman of company legend. He was someone shaped by loss and determined, in his own flawed way, to break a cycle of abandonment. Later that night, Hari walked toward her assigned room, her mind still processing their conversation. As she rounded a corner, she nearly collided with Junhyuk coming from the opposite direction. They stopped, the hallway suddenly feeling too narrow for both of them. Did you find everything you need? He asked, his voice quiet in the stillness of the house. Yes, thank you, Hari nodded, acutely aware of his proximity. Neither moved. The air between them felt charged with unspoken words and complicated emotions. Hari, Junhyuk began hesitantly, I want you to know that I respect you. Your determination, your loyalty to your mother. You're not what I expected. Hari looked up at him, surprised by the genuine compliment from a man known for his harsh criticism. Neither are you, she admitted softly. Their eyes locked, and for a moment, the atmosphere shifted. Something beyond their complicated situation, something personal and electric, passed between them. Hari felt her heart quicken as Junhyuk seemed to lean slightly closer. Instead, he stepped back, breaking the moment. Good night, Hari. He turned and walked away, his usually confident stride now slightly hurried, as if he were retreating from something dangerous. Good night, Junhyuk, Hari whispered, watching him disappear around the corner. She entered her room and closed the door, leaning against it as she tried to make sense of her conflicted feelings. Anger and resentment at his manipulation still simmered beneath the surface, but now they mingled with something more complicated, an unwilling understanding of his motives, and perhaps most dangerous of all, a growing attraction she couldn't entirely deny. Dawn brought soft light filtering through the paper windows of Hari's room. She woke slowly, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar surroundings before remembering where she was. As she placed a hand on her stomach, a habit that had become increasingly common, she felt movement for the first time, a flutter so gentle she might have imagined it. Her eyes widened in wonder. "Hello there," she whispered to her growing child. A knock at the door interrupted the moment. "Hari?" Junhyuk's voice came through. "Breakfast is ready whenever you are." "I'll be right there," she called back, a small smile forming despite her still conflicted feelings. This child would connect them forever, whether she agreed to his proposed arrangement or not. That reality was beginning to sink in, bringing with it both anxiety and, unexpectedly, a strange sense of comfort. During the drive back to Seoul, the atmosphere between Hari and Junhyuk was different, less tense, more thoughtful. The night at the retreat had changed something, though neither seemed ready to articulate exactly what. "I've been thinking about your proposal," Hari finally said, breaking the comfortable silence. Junhyuk glanced at her, his expression guarded but hopeful. "And? I'll agree, but with conditions." "Name them," he replied, his tone professional but lacking its usual coldness. 1. I keep my job, but transfer to a different department, Hari began. "It would be inappropriate to remain your assistant." Junhyuk nodded his agreement. 2. We take things slowly. No rushed engagement. We need to get to know each other first, for the baby's sake. Reasonable, Junhyuk conceded, his eyes returning to the road. And 3, Hari continued, her voice becoming more serious, you never lie to me again. Complete honesty, even when it's difficult. Junhyuk considered her final condition, then nodded slowly. I can agree to those terms. Hari held out her hand formally to seal their agreement. Junhyuk took it, but instead of shaking it, he held it for a moment longer than necessary, his thumb brushing lightly across her knuckles. Partnership, he said, the word carrying weight beyond its literal meaning. Partnership, Hari echoed, a small smile forming as their hands remained linked. After a moment that stretched just beyond professional propriety, Hari gently pulled away, both of them looking slightly flustered by the unexpected connection. The rest of the journey passed in silence, but it was a different kind of silence, one filled with possibility rather than tension. The elevator doors opened to the executive floor of Kong Biotech. Hari and Junhyuk stepped out together, her pregnancy now visibly apparent in a professional maternity dress. The busy floor fell suddenly quiet as employees stopped to stare at the unexpected sight. Hari felt her cheeks warm under the collective gaze, but before she could react, Junhyuk did something that sent a ripple of shock through the onlookers. He placed a protective hand on her lower back, guiding her past the staring employees with a subtle but unmistakable gesture of intimacy. From his desk, Secretary Kim's eyes widened at the display, though he quickly composed his expression into professional neutrality. Ms. Yoon will be transitioning to the Corporate Strategy Department, Junhyuk announced, his voice carrying just enough to ensure everyone heard. Please ensure her workspace is ready by noon. Secretary Kim nodded, confusion evident despite his attempt to hide it. As they reached Junhyuk's office door, he leaned closer to Hari, his voice dropping to a murmur meant only for her. Ready for the rumors to start? I think they already have, Hari replied with surprising humor, a small smile playing at her lips. Their eyes met briefly, something new developing between them that went beyond their agreed arrangement. Later that day, Hari sat in an examination room at the company's medical facility, Junhyuk standing somewhat awkwardly beside her as Dr. Lee prepared the ultrasound equipment. Everything looks perfect, the doctor announced, studying the monitor with professional satisfaction. Healthy development, strong heartbeat. Junhyuk stared at the screen, an unfamiliar softness in his expression as he watched the tiny form move. Hari observed him surreptitiously, struck by the transformation in his usually stern features. Would you like to know the gender? Dr. Lee asked, looking between them. Hari glanced at Junhyuk questioningly, unexpectedly touched by his willingness to defer to her. It's your decision, he said simply. I'd like to know, Hari decided. Dr. Lee smiled. It's a girl. Something profound happened to Junhyuk's carefully controlled expression, it cracked, revealing genuine emotion that seemed to surprise even him. Without thinking, Hari reached for his hand. He took it, their fingers intertwining naturally, both focused on the image of their daughter on the screen. The moment felt significant, a shift from arrangement to something neither had anticipated. As Hari finished the post-appointment paperwork in the waiting room, she noticed Junhyuk tense suddenly. Following his gaze, she saw an elegant elderly woman approaching, leaning slightly on a cane but carrying herself with unmistakable authority. So the rumors are true, the woman said, her voice cold and precise. Grandmother, Junhyuk acknowledged, his face immediately hardening. What are you doing here? Chairwoman Kong gestured toward Hari with her cane. Is that her? Your project? Don't, Junhyuk warned, his tone carrying unexpected sharpness. The chairwoman continued undeterred. Did you think I wouldn't find out? That you've been keeping this from me? Hari approached, sensing the building tension. Excuse me? The elderly woman turned, assessing Hari with calculating eyes that reminded her unnervingly of Jun Hyuk's. Despite her age, Chairwoman Kong radiated power and intimidation. So you're the one carrying my great-grandchild, she said with deceptive pleasantness. How convenient for you. I'm sorry, but who are you? Hari asked, though she'd already guessed. Jun Hyuk stepped between them protectively. Hari, this is my grandmother, Chairwoman Kong. Grandmother, this is Yoon Hari. My grandson thinks he's being clever, the chairwoman said with false politeness. Securing an heir without securing a suitable wife. Hari stiffened at the implication, but maintained her composure. A child needs more than biology, Jun Hyuk, the chairwoman continued, her gaze cold. It needs family connections, proper upbringing. She turned to Hari, eyes narrowing. Tell me, Ms. Yoon, what exactly do you hope to gain from this arrangement? Before Hari could respond, Jun Hyuk cut in, his voice tight with controlled anger. Enough, grandmother. Ms. Yoon is the mother of my child. You will respect her. Respect must be earned, the chairwoman scoffed. What has she done besides? I said enough, Jun Hyuk interrupted, his tone so final that even his formidable grandmother fell silent. The older woman's lips thinned with displeasure. We'll discuss this later. In private. She turned and walked away with remarkable dignity despite her age, leaving a tense silence in her wake. So that's the grandmother, Hari observed once the chairwoman was out of earshot. I'm sorry about that, Jun Hyuk said, genuine regret in his voice. Don't apologize for her, Hari replied with unexpected strength. I can handle difficult people. I work with you, don't I? The unexpected joke broke the tension. Jun Hyuk actually smiled, a rare, genuine smile that transformed his face completely. Hari looked momentarily stunned by the sight. Let's get you home, he said, the smile still lingering as he guided her toward the exit. The following days brought a flurry of whispers and curious glances wherever Hari went in the Kong Biotech building. Her transfer to the strategy department had been expedited, giving her a private office away from the most intense scrutiny, but the gossip followed her nonetheless. Min-young cornered her in the hallway, practically vibrating with excitement. Is it true? Are you and the Ice King Chairman Kong and I have a personal relationship? Yes, Hari confirmed professionally, trying to maintain some semblance of privacy despite the company-wide interest. How? When? Min-young pressed eagerly. Everyone's talking about how he announced it at the executive meeting this morning. Hari stopped walking, genuinely surprised. He announced what exactly? That you're carrying the future of Kong Biotech. Min-young exclaimed. That anyone who treats you with disrespect answers directly to him. It's like a drama. She continued breathlessly. The cold CEO and the ordinary office worker. A secret baby. Min-young, it's not like that, Hari protested, though she wasn't entirely sure what it was anymore. I need details. How did it happen? Was it love at first sight? Before Hari could respond, Jun Hyuk appeared at the end of the hallway. Min-young squeaked with fear and scurried away like a startled rabbit. Jun Hyuk approached, looking unusually uncertain. Can we talk? In an empty conference room, Hari faced Jun Hyuk with arms crossed. You announced our situation to the entire executive team? The rumors were getting out of control, Jun Hyuk explained, a defensive edge to his voice. I needed to address them directly. Without consulting me first? Hari challenged, frustrated by his unilateral decision. Jun Hyuk's expression softened unexpectedly. You're right. I should have discussed it with you. I apologize. The sincerity of his apology caught Hari off guard. The Kong Jun Hyuk she'd first met would never have admitted fault so readily. What exactly did you tell them? She asked, her anger fading. That we're in a committed relationship. That you're carrying my child. And that your position in the company is based solely on your merits. He hesitated, then continued more personally. I wanted to protect you from office gossip. From people thinking you're taking advantage of the situation. Understanding dawned on Hari. You were defending my honor? Jun Hyuk looked uncomfortable with the emotional framing of his actions. I was stating facts, he insisted, though his eyes betrayed more complex motivations. Thank you, Hari said softly, genuinely touched by his concern. Jun Hyuk changed the subject, clearly uncomfortable with gratitude. There's something else. My grandmother has invited us to dinner tonight. After how she treated me at the hospital? Hari asked, alarmed at the prospect. You don't have to go, Jun Hyuk assured her. I can handle her alone. No, Hari decided after a moment's consideration. We're partners, remember? I'll go. Jun Hyuk looked at her with new respect, perhaps even admiration. You continue to surprise me, Hari. The warmth in his voice sent an unexpected flutter through her chest, a reaction she wasn't yet ready to examine too closely. Chairwoman Kang's mansion was exactly as Hari had imagined it would be: opulent, traditional, and intimidating. The dining room featured antique furniture that probably cost more than Hari's entire apartment building, with priceless artifacts displayed in illuminated cabinets along the walls. The chairwoman sat at the head of the table like a queen holding court, while Junhyuk and Hari were positioned across from each other. The arrangement felt deliberate, designed to prevent any united front they might present. The atmosphere remained tense as servers brought course after course of expensive dishes. Hari ate little, her appetite diminished by the chairwoman's calculating gaze. "Tell me about your family, Ms. Yoon," the elderly woman finally asked, breaking the strained silence. "It's just my mother and me," Hari replied politely, maintaining her composure. "My father passed away when I was young." "And your mother? What does she do?" The question was pointed, probing for weaknesses. Hari caught Junhyuk's supportive glance before answering. "She worked in a textile factory most of her life. She recently had surgery, but she's recovering well." "How difficult for you," the chairwoman said with false sympathy that didn't reach her eyes. "And now, finding yourself in such fortunate circumstances." The implication was clear, and Hari felt Junhyuk tense across the table. "If you're suggesting I planned this, Chairwoman Kang, you're mistaken," Hari said directly, refusing to be intimidated. "Am I?" The older woman's smile was cold. "It seems convenient that a woman of your background would suddenly find herself connected to one of Korea's wealthiest families." "Grandmother," Junhyuk warned, his tone carrying an edge Hari had previously only heard directed at incompetent employees. "I understand your concerns, Chairwoman," Hari responded with surprising grace, deciding that directness was her best defense. "You want to protect your family and company. But I didn't seek this connection." She placed a hand protectively on her growing stomach. "What matters now is creating a stable environment for this child. Your great-granddaughter." At the mention of a great-granddaughter, something shifted in the chairwoman's expression, a flicker of genuine interest breaking through her hostile facade. "A girl?" she asked, turning to Junhyuk, who nodded confirmation. "The first female in the Kang line in 3 generations," the chairwoman noted, her assessment of Hari becoming more curious than hostile. "You have spirit, Ms. Yoon," she conceded after a moment. "I'll give you that." The dinner continued with less overt tension, though Hari remained guarded, aware that one battle didn't constitute winning the war. After the meal, Hari escaped to the mansion's garden, needing a moment of solitude to process the evening. She found a stone bench partially hidden by ornamental trees and sat down, taking her first deep breath since entering the imposing house. "You handled my grandmother remarkably well," Junhyuk's voice came from behind her. He joined her on the bench, maintaining a respectful distance. "Is she always like that?" Hari asked, mentally exhausted from the constant verbal sparring. "Actually, she was on her best behavior tonight," Junhyuk replied with a hint of dry humor. Hari laughed despite herself. "Heaven help us when she's in a bad mood then." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the garden's peaceful atmosphere a welcome contrast to the tension inside. "I'm sorry I dragged you into this complicated family," Junhyuk said quietly, genuine regret in his voice. "All families are complicated," Hari observed thoughtfully. "This one's just wealthier about it." To her surprise, Junhyuk laughed, a genuine, warm sound that transformed his usually stern face. Hari found herself staring, entranced by the change. "What?" he asked, noticing her look. "I've never heard you laugh before," she admitted honestly. "It's nice." Their eyes met, something shifting between them in the garden's soft evening light. Junhyuk moved slightly closer on the bench, the distance between them suddenly charged with possibility. "Hari, he began softly, but was interrupted by his phone ringing. The moment broken, he answered with clear frustration. "This better be important." As he listened, his expression changed to one of concern. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, he said curtly before hanging up. "There's an emergency at the lab," he explained, turning back to Hari with regret evident in his eyes. "I need to go." "Of course," Hari nodded understandingly. "I'll take a taxi home." "No," Junhyuk insisted. "My driver will take you. I'll call another car." He hesitated, then added with unexpected softness, "Thank you for tonight. For facing my grandmother. For everything." The sincerity in his voice touched Hari deeply. Without thinking, she reached out, briefly touching his hand. "That's what partners do." Their eyes held for a moment before he reluctantly left, leaving Hari with the distinct feeling that something significant had almost happened, something beyond their carefully negotiated arrangement. "Mom, something's happened," Hari said into her phone later that night, pacing her small apartment. "Chairwoman Kang knows about me." "About the baby?" "The grandmother?" Mija's voice crackled through the speaker, concern evident. "Is everything okay?" She invited me to dinner, interrogated me would be more accurate, Hari sighed, sinking onto her sofa. She clearly thinks I'm after the Kong fortune. And Junhyuk? How did he handle it? He defended me, Hari said, still somewhat surprised by the memory. Actually stood up to her. I didn't expect that. There was a pause before Mija spoke again, her voice gentle but knowing. You're developing feelings for him, aren't you? What? No. Hari protested too quickly. It's just. He's different than I thought. Not as cold. Hariya, her mother said softly, be careful. This arrangement of yours, it's complicated enough without adding emotions. I know, Hari whispered, placing a hand on her stomach where her daughter had begun moving more frequently. I know. After hanging up, Hari stared at the ceiling, unable to sleep. Her mother was right, emotions would only complicate an already complex situation. Yet she couldn't deny that something was changing between her and Junhyuk, something neither of them had anticipated when they'd agreed to their partnership. The next morning, as Hari arrived at her new office in the strategy department, she found a small vase of peonies on her desk, her favorite flowers, though she couldn't remember ever mentioning this to Junhyuk. There was no card, but she didn't need one to know who had sent them. The gesture, small but thoughtful, made her smile despite her determination to keep their relationship strictly professional. Perhaps some complications were worth the risk after all. Hari was reviewing quarterly projections when her office phone rang. Corporate strategy, Yoon Hari speaking. Ms. Yoon, this is Secretary Kim. Chairman Kong asked me to inform you that his grandmother has invited your mother for tea this afternoon. Hari's blood ran cold. She what? The car has already been sent to collect her, Kim continued apologetically. The chairwoman was quite insistent. Panic rising, Hari fumbled for her personal phone, calling her mother's number only to receive no answer. Thank you for letting me know, she managed to say before hanging up. She grabbed her purse and rushed out, nearly colliding with Minyoung in the hallway. Where's the fire? Minyoung asked, steadying herself. Chairwoman Kong has invited my mother to tea, Hari explained tersely, already moving toward the elevators. Minyoung's eyes widened in understanding. Oh no. Exactly, Hari confirmed grimly as the elevator doors closed. Hari arrived at the chairwoman's mansion breathless and anxious. A housekeeper led her to an ornate tea room where her mother sat opposite Chairwoman Kong, both women seemingly engaged in polite conversation. Mom. Hari burst in, unable to contain her worry. Are you okay? Mija looked up calmly, showing none of the distress Hari had feared. Hariya, you didn't tell me the chairwoman was so interesting. Chairwoman Kang's lips curved in what might have been a smile. Ms. Yoon and I were just discussing family values. She has some rather refreshing perspectives. Hari looked between them with suspicion. Mom, we should go. Actually, Mija said, standing with dignity, the chairwoman and I have finished our conversation. She turned to the older woman. I believe I've made my position clear. Chairwoman Kong inclined her head slightly, something like respect in her calculating eyes. Indeed you have. Mija walked to Hari, taking her daughter's arm. Let's go home now. As they moved toward the door, heavy footsteps approached from the hallway. Junhyuk appeared, his expression thunderous when he saw the assembled women. Grandmother, he began, barely controlled anger evident in his voice. Young man, Mija interrupted, fixing him with a maternal look that stopped him mid-sentence. I expect you to call on us properly. My daughter deserves that respect. To Hari's astonishment, Junhyuk, the man feared throughout corporate Seoul, bowed respectfully to her mother. Yes, Ms. Yoon. Mija nodded in satisfaction before leading Hari out, leaving Junhyuk with his grandmother. Once they were safely in the car, Hari turned to her mother. What happened in there? What did she say to you? Mija adjusted her handbag calmly. She asked how much it would take for you to agree to a proper marriage. To do things the right way. She tried to buy you? Hari gasped, horrified. She tried, Mija confirmed with quiet dignity. I informed her that neither my daughter nor my grandchild was for sale. Hari stared at her mother with new admiration. You stood up to her. Of course I did, Mija said simply. I may not have her wealth or power, but I know one thing she does not. What's that? Mija patted Hari's hand. That true family cannot be bought, arranged, or manipulated. It must be built on love and respect. She paused, looking at Hari with understanding. Something I think your Junhyuk is beginning to learn. He's not my Junhyuk, Hari protested weakly. Mija's knowing smile said she believed otherwise. Later that evening, Hari's doorbell rang. When she opened it, Junhyuk stood there, looking uncharacteristically nervous. May I come in? He asked, a bouquet of flowers in one hand and a small gift bag in the other. Hari stepped aside to let him enter. Her apartment, though small, was neat and warmly decorated, a stark contrast to his minimalist penthouse. I want to apologize for my grandmother's behavior, he said, offering the flowers. She had no right to approach your mother that way. My mother handled herself quite well, Hari replied, taking the flowers with a small smile. I think the chairwoman met her match. I believe she did, Junhyuk agreed, the corner of his mouth lifting slightly. Your mother is formidable. She said I should expect you to call on us properly, Hari said, arranging the flowers in a vase. I didn't think you actually would. I respect your mother, Junhyuk said simply. And I respect you. He offered the gift bag. This is for the baby. Hari's expression softened as she removed a small stuffed rabbit, clearly expensive but chosen with care. Thank you. It's lovely. An awkward silence fell between them, filled with unspoken words and complicated emotions. Would you like some tea? Hari finally offered. Please, Junhyuk nodded, looking relieved at the simple suggestion. As Hari busied herself in the kitchen, Junhyuk wandered her small living room, studying the photos on display. Hari with her mother, Hari at university graduation, Hari hiking on a mountain with friends. A life filled with connection and warmth despite limited means. Your home is nice, he said when she returned with tea. It feels lived in. Unlike your sterile penthouse? Hari teased gently, handing him a cup. My place isn't exactly designed for comfort, he admitted, taking a sip. Maybe it should be, Hari suggested. Especially if you're planning to raise a child there. Junhyuk looked thoughtful. You're right. I hadn't considered that. They sat in surprisingly comfortable silence for a moment before Hari spoke again. Junhyuk, what happened at the lab the other night? The emergency? His expression darkened. Someone breached security protocols. Accessed files on Project Genesis, the donor program. We've contained the situation, but, Hari prompted. There's evidence my grandmother was involved, he admitted. She may have been monitoring the program all along. Hari set down her cup, disturbed. Do you think she knew? Before I even applied for the job? It's possible, Junhyuk conceded. My grandmother has always been several steps ahead. So this, all of this, might have been orchestrated from the beginning? The possibility made Hari's head spin. Junhyuk moved to sit beside her on the couch, taking her hand in a gesture that was becoming increasingly natural between them. Not everything, he said quietly. Not us. The simple word, us, hung in the air, weighted with meaning neither was quite ready to define. What happens now? Hari asked, not pulling her hand away. Now, Junhyuk said thoughtfully, we take control of our own story. No more letting my grandmother or anyone else dictate the terms. He hesitated, then added softly, if you're willing. Hari looked at their joined hands, then up to meet his eyes. I'm willing. The moment felt like a new beginning, a genuine choice rather than a negotiated arrangement. Over the following weeks, a strange new normalcy developed. Junhyuk continued to run Kong Biotech with his usual precision, but small changes were evident to those who knew him well. He smiled more. He listened to employees rather than simply issuing directives. His once legendary temper rarely made an appearance. Hari, meanwhile, grew more confident in her role with the strategy department. Her pregnancy progressed healthily, and she found herself increasingly comfortable with Junhyuk's presence in her life. They hadn't defined exactly what they were to each other, but their partnership had evolved into something that looked remarkably like a genuine relationship. They dined together several times a week. He accompanied her to prenatal appointments. On weekends, he sometimes took her to his countryside retreat, where both seemed able to relax away from corporate pressures and prying eyes. One such weekend, they sat on the veranda of the traditional house, watching the sunset paint the mountains in brilliant orange and gold. Hari cradled a cup of herbal tea, while Junhyuk sat close beside her, their shoulders nearly touching. I've been thinking, he said, breaking their comfortable silence. A dangerous pastime, Hari teased, earning a raised eyebrow from him. I'm serious, he continued. The baby will be here in 3 months. We should discuss living arrangements. Hari set down her cup, turning to face him. What are you suggesting? Move in with me, Junhyuk said simply. My penthouse has more than enough space, and it would be practical for co-parenting. Practical, Hari repeated, unable to keep disappointment from her voice. She'd hoped for something more than pragmatism. Junhyuk must have noticed, because he reached for her hand, his expression softening. That came out wrong. I'm not asking just for practical reasons, Hari. Then why are you asking? She pressed, needing more than logistical convenience. He looked away momentarily, as if gathering courage, something Hari had never seen him need before. When he turned back, his eyes held vulnerability rarely glimpsed beneath his corporate mask. Because I want you there, he admitted quietly. Because my home feels empty without you in it. Because I've grown accustomed to your presence in my life, and I don't want to go back to how things were before. The honesty in his words touched Hari deeply. It wasn't a declaration of love, but from Kang Jun-hyuk, it was perhaps as close as she could expect. "I'll think about it," she promised, squeezing his hand gently. He nodded, accepting her need for time without pushing, another change from the demanding CEO who had once expected immediate compliance with his every directive. A week later, Hari invited Jun-hyuk to dinner at her apartment. She'd spent the afternoon cooking, wanting everything to be perfect for what she planned to say. When he arrived, his eyes widened at the spread she'd prepared, all his favorites, she'd noticed, from their many meals together. "What's the occasion?" he asked, presenting her with flowers as had become his habit. "I made a decision," Hari replied, guiding him to the table. "About your offer?" They ate in pleasant conversation, Jun-hyuk complimenting her cooking with genuine appreciation. When they'd finished, Hari took a deep breath. "I've decided to accept your offer," she said, meeting his eyes across the table. "I'll move in with you." Jun-hyuk's expression brightened immediately, but Hari held up a hand to indicate she wasn't finished. "But I have conditions," she continued. "First, I want to maintain some independence. My own space within your home, my own bathroom, my own closet." Jun-hyuk nodded. "Of course. Second, I need to know that whatever this is between us," she gestured between them, "it's real. Not just for the baby, not just for appearance's sake." His expression grew serious. "It's real, Hari. More real than anything I've known." She studied him, searching for any hint of insincerity, but found only earnest intensity in his gaze. "Then yes," she confirmed. "Let's live together." What happened next caught her completely by surprise. Jun-hyuk stood, moved to her side of the table, and pulled her gently to her feet. Before she could question him, he lowered his mouth to hers in their first real kiss. Unlike the hesitant, uncertain moments they'd shared before, this kiss was deliberate, deep, and filled with emotion neither had fully acknowledged until now. His hands cradled her face with surprising tenderness, while hers found their way to his shoulders, steadying herself against the wave of feeling that washed over her. When they finally parted, both slightly breathless, Jun-hyuk rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that for a very long time," he confessed. "Why didn't you?" Hari asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was afraid," he admitted. "Afraid you'd reject me. Afraid I'd ruin whatever we were building." Hari smiled, reaching up to touch his face. "Kang Jun-hyuk, afraid of something? I never thought I'd see the day." "Only of losing you," he murmured, his honesty stealing her breath. She kissed him again, a silent promise that he wouldn't. The news of their cohabitation spread quickly through Kong Biotech, fueling fresh rumors about their relationship. Hari found herself the subject of increased scrutiny, but now faced it with confidence rather than anxiety. Whatever others thought, she and Jun-hyuk knew the truth of what was developing between them. Moving into Jun-hyuk's penthouse was both simpler and more complex than Hari had anticipated. The physical move was easy, she had relatively few possessions, and Jun-hyuk hired professionals to handle everything. The emotional adjustment proved more challenging. His space was beautiful but sterile, designed for appearance rather than comfort. Hari found herself gradually introducing changes: fresh flowers in the living room, colorful throw pillows on the stark white sofa, family photos on previously bare surfaces. To her surprise, Jun-hyuk welcomed these modifications. "It feels more like a home now," he observed one evening as they sat together on the couch, her legs stretched across his lap while he reviewed documents. "It was more like a hotel before," Hari replied honestly. "Beautiful but impersonal." He set down his papers, giving her his full attention, something that still surprised her, accustomed as she was to competing with his work. "I never needed a home before," he said thoughtfully. "Just somewhere to sleep between workdays." "And now?" she prompted. Jun-hyuk's hand moved to her stomach, where their daughter kicked energetically against his palm. His smile was tender, transformative. "Now I need a home. For all of us." The simple declaration warmed Hari from within. She covered his hand with hers, savoring the moment of connection. "I never thought I'd be here," she admitted. "When I went to that clinic, I was just trying to save my mother. I never imagined that you'd end up with the cold CEO?" Jun-hyuk finished wryly. "That I'd find someone who understands me," Hari corrected gently. "Someone I could build a life with." Jun-hyuk's expression softened. "Is that what we're doing? Building a life together? Isn't it?" Hari asked, suddenly uncertain. Instead of answering directly, Jun-hyuk reached into his pocket and removed a small velvet box. Hari's breath caught as he opened it, revealing a stunning engagement ring, elegant and distinctive rather than merely expensive. "I've had this for weeks," he confessed. "Waiting for the right moment." "Jun-hyuk," Hari whispered, her eyes wide. "This isn't about appearances or arrangements anymore," he said quietly. "This is about us, you, me, and our daughter. I want to build a life with you, Hari. A real life, a real family." Tears filled Hari's eyes as she reached for the ring. Are you asking me to marry you? I'm asking you to love me, Junhyuk replied, vulnerability naked in his expression. The marriage is just paperwork. What I want, what I need, is you. Your heart. Hari's tears spilled over. You already have it, she whispered. You have had it for longer than I was willing to admit, even to myself. He slipped the ring onto her finger, then kissed her with such tenderness that fresh tears escaped. I love you, Yoon-Hari, he murmured against her lips. I love you too, she replied, the words feeling both new and familiar, as if they'd been waiting to be spoken all along. The day Hari went into labor began ordinarily enough. She woke early, uncomfortable as she had been for weeks with her now prominent belly. Junhyuk was already up, preparing tea and checking emails, his version of a relaxed morning. You're up early, he noted, setting a cup of her favorite ginger tea before her. Your daughter doesn't believe in sleeping in, Hari replied, wincing as she shifted positions. She's been practicing martial arts all night. Junhyuk smiled, placing a gentle hand on her stomach. She's strong. Like her mother. Hari covered his hand with hers, enjoying these quiet morning moments that had become precious to her. In the months since she'd moved in, they'd developed routines and rituals that anchored their days, breakfasts together, evening walks when weather permitted, weekends at the countryside retreat. She was startled by a sharp pain that radiated through her lower back. Junhyuk noticed her grimace. Are you alright? He asked, concern immediate. Just another Braxton Hicks, Hari assured him, though this one felt different, stronger, more focused. I've been having them for weeks. Junhyuk didn't look convinced but nodded, returning to his tablet. I have meetings until 2, but I can reschedule if you need me to stay home. I'm fine, Hari insisted. Go to work. I'll call if anything changes. He kissed her goodbye, lingering a moment longer than usual, as if hesitant to leave. Promise you'll call immediately if you feel anything unusual. I promise, Hari agreed, touched by his concern. After he left, she tried to focus on the book she'd been reading, but the discomfort continued, growing more regular and intense. By mid-morning, she could no longer deny what was happening. Reaching for her phone, she called Junhyuk. Hari? He answered immediately, concern evident. Is everything okay? I think, she paused as another contraction built, I think you should come home. The baby's coming. There was a brief silence, then, I'm on my way. Don't move. I'll be there in 10 minutes. He arrived in 8, looking more disheveled than Hari had ever seen him. His usually perfect hair was mussed, his tie askew, as if he'd run through the building. How far apart are the contractions? He asked without preamble, kneeling beside her. About 7 minutes, Hari replied, trying to remain calm despite the pain. We have time. Junhyuk nodded, already pulling out his phone. I'm calling Dr. Lee. The hospital wing is ready. As he made arrangements with his usual efficiency, Hari watched him with a mixture of amusement and affection. For all his careful planning, Junhyuk looked genuinely rattled by the reality of impending fatherhood. The trip to the hospital was a blur of activity. Junhyuk had arranged for a private suite in the best maternity ward in Seoul, with a team of doctors and nurses waiting for their arrival. Hari might have been embarrassed by the special treatment if she hadn't been so focused on the increasingly painful contractions. Throughout the long hours of labor, Junhyuk never left her side. He held her hand through contractions, helped her walk when the doctors suggested movement, and spoke encouragingly even when she snapped at him in pain. This wasn't the cold CEO of Kong Biotech but a man entirely devoted to his partner and unborn child. You're doing amazingly, he murmured, wiping her forehead with a cool cloth. I'm so proud of you. I can't do this, Hari gasped as a particularly strong contraction hit. It hurts too much. You can, Junhyuk insisted, his eyes never leaving hers. You're the strongest person I know, Hari. Our daughter is almost here. When the final moments came, Junhyuk supported her physically and emotionally, his usual composure giving way to raw feeling as their daughter emerged into the world with a powerful cry. She's perfect, the doctor announced, placing the tiny, wriggling infant on Hari's chest. Tears streamed down Hari's face as she cradled their daughter. Hello, little one, she whispered. We've been waiting for you. When she looked up at Junhyuk, she was shocked to see tears in his eyes as well, the man who prided himself on control, openly weeping at the sight of his child. Thank you, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Thank you for our daughter. For everything. He leaned down to kiss Hari's forehead, then gently touched their daughter's tiny hand. The baby instinctively grasped his finger, and Junhyuk's face transformed with wonder. What should we name her? Hari asked softly. Junhyuk thought for a moment. Sumin, he suggested. It means, gentle and clever. Kong Sumin, Hari tested the name, smiling when the baby seemed to respond. It's perfect. As the medical team bustled around them, completing necessary procedures, Hari and Junhyuk remained in their own world, marveling at the tiny life they'd created together, not through cold calculation or desperate need, but through a love neither had anticipated. The first visitors arrived shortly after Hari had been moved to a recovery room. Mija entered cautiously, tears already flowing at the sight of her grandchild. "Oh, Hariya," she whispered, approaching the bed where Hari held the sleeping infant. "She's beautiful." Junhyuk stood respectfully, offering his chair to Mija. "Would you like to hold her?" Mija nodded eagerly, carefully taking the bundled baby into her arms. "Hello, little one," she cooed. "I'm your grandmother." Hari watched with contentment as her mother bonded with Sumin. The journey to this moment had been unexpected and challenging, but seeing the love already surrounding her daughter made every difficulty worthwhile. The door opened again, and Chairwoman Kong entered, leaning on her cane but standing as tall and imposing as ever. The room tensed immediately. "Grandmother," Junhyuk acknowledged, moving protectively closer to Hari. The elderly woman approached slowly, her sharp eyes fixed on the baby in Mija's arms. "May I?" she asked, her usual commanding tone softened slightly. Mija hesitated, looking to Hari for guidance. After a moment, Hari nodded, and Mija carefully transferred Sumin to the chairwoman's waiting arms. The transformation in the formidable woman was immediate and startling. Her stern expression melted as she gazed down at her great-granddaughter, a smile softening features that rarely showed anything but calculation. "She's perfect," Chairwoman Kong said, genuine emotion in her voice. She looked up at Junhyuk and Hari. "You did well. Both of you." Coming from her, it was the highest praise possible. Junhyuk's arm tightened around Hari's shoulders. "We know," he replied, quiet confidence in his tone. The two grandmothers, from vastly different worlds but united in their love for the same child, created a picture Hari knew she would cherish forever. Whatever the future held, Sumin would be surrounded by family who loved her fiercely. 1 year later, Hari stood in the garden of Junhyuk's countryside retreat, now their family home for weekends and holidays, watching as Junhyuk chased a wobbly Sumin across the lawn. The baby's delighted squeals filled the air as she toddled toward her father, who pretended to be unable to catch her. "She has him wrapped around her finger," Mija observed, joining Hari on the veranda. "Completely," Hari agreed with a smile. "The mighty CEO is no match for a 1-year-old. The changes in their lives had been profound. After Sumin's birth, Junhyuk had restructured his work schedule to be home by dinner most nights. He delegated more responsibility, trusting his executives rather than micromanaging every decision. His reputation in the company had transformed from Ice King to respected but approachable leader. Hari, meanwhile, had returned to work part-time, now heading a new charitable foundation within Kong Biotech that focused on supporting single mothers and funding medical care for underprivileged families. The initiative had been Junhyuk's idea, but Hari had given it life and direction. They had married in a simple ceremony 3 months after Sumin's birth, not for appearances or obligation, but because they genuinely wanted to build a life together. The wedding had been intimate, with only close friends and family present, a stark contrast to the elaborate chaebol weddings that filled society pages. Secretary Kim approached Hari now, tablet in hand. "The quarterly reports for your review, Director Yoon," he said, using her professional title despite the weekend setting. "Thank you, Kim," Hari replied, taking the tablet but setting it aside. "I'll look at these tomorrow." She watched her family with contentment, unwilling to let work intrude on precious weekend time. Who would have thought? Kim mused, following her gaze to where Junhyuk was now sitting cross-legged on the grass, helping Sumin pick flowers. The Ice King, completely melted. "Not completely," Hari laughed. "You should see him in board meetings. He can still terrify an executive with just a look." They shared a knowing smile before Kim excused himself to take a call. Junhyuk looked up, catching Hari's eye across the garden. His smile, open, warm, transformed, lit his entire face as he made his way to her, Sumin balanced on his hip. "Happy?" he asked softly when he reached her. Beyond words, Hari replied honestly, leaning into him as his free arm wrapped around her. They stood together, watching as Sumin charmed her grandmothers, who sat nearby engaged in what appeared to be a friendly conversation despite their vastly different backgrounds. "Sometimes I think about how differently things could have gone," Junhyuk mused. "If you hadn't applied to the program. If you hadn't donated to the clinic." Hari continued. "If you weren't so stubborn." He teased. "If you weren't so impossible." She countered with a laugh. Their eyes met, the joking fading into genuine emotion. "I love you, Hari," Junhyuk said softly. "Every unexpected, unplanned moment with you." "And I love you," she replied, touching his face tenderly. "Cold CEO, warm father, impossible husband. All of you." He kissed her gently as Sumin babbled between them, reaching for her mother. Hari took her daughter into her arms, completing their family circle as the sun cast a golden glow over the countryside home that had witnessed the beginning of their unlikely love story. Life hadn't gone according to plan for either of them, it had gone infinitely better. What had begun as a clinical arrangement, a business transaction between strangers, had blossomed into something neither could have imagined, a real family, built on understanding, respect, and love. And as Sumin's laughter rang out in the peaceful garden, Hari knew with absolute certainty that some mistakes, like accidentally carrying the CEO's baby, were the best things that could ever happen. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe to Happiness of Love. That way, you won't miss any of our heartfelt romances. See you in the next love story.